Explorer X here. Let's go capture and examine some lesser-known creatures of folklore. I hope you're not afraid. In folklore and fantasy literature, a lich is a type of undead creature, usually depicted as a sorcerer or other powerful magic user who has become immortal through the use of dark magic. The concept of the lich is thought to have originated in ancient Egyptian mythology, where the term lich referred to the mummified remains of the dead. In fantasy literature, liches are often depicted as powerful, intelligent beings who seek to use their magical abilities to achieve immortality and conquer death. According to traditional folklore, a person becomes a lich by creating a phylactery, or magical artifact that contains their life force. The phylactery is typically hidden in a secret location, and as long as it remains intact, the lich cannot be permanently killed. If the phylactery is destroyed, however, the lich is said to be permanently destroyed as well. Liches are often depicted as malevolent beings who use their magical powers to manipulate and control others, and are often feared and reviled by those who encounter them. They are often depicted as being immune to many forms of physical harm, and are able to regenerate their bodies even if they are damaged or destroyed. Despite their immense magical powers, liches are often portrayed as being vulnerable to certain types of magic, such as holy magic or magic that is specifically designed to counter their abilities. In many stories, liches are ultimately defeated by heroes who are able to find and destroy their phylacteries, thereby ending their reign of terror and allowing them to rest in peace. Here's an old story about one lich. There was once a powerful and ambitious magician named Xander who longed to conquer death and achieve immortality. He spent years studying dark magic and delving into forbidden knowledge, seeking a way to cheat death and live forever. Finally, after many years of research, Xander discovered a ritual that he believed would allow him to become a lich, a powerful undead being that could not be killed. Excited by the prospect of eternal life, Xander set about gathering the rare ingredients and ancient tomes that he needed to perform the ritual. One dark and stormy night, Xander locked himself in his tower and began the ritual. He recited ancient incantations and mixed exotic potions, carefully following the instructions in the ancient tome that he had found. As the ritual reached its climax, Xander felt a surge of power course through his body. He felt his soul leave his physical body and enter the phylactery that he had created, a small crystal orb that glowed with an otherworldly light. When the ritual was complete, Xander opened his eyes to find that he had been transformed into a lich. He was now immortal, and possessed immense magical powers. However, Xander's joy was short-lived. He soon discovered that being a lich came with its own set of problems. He was shunned by society and feared by those who knew of his true nature, and he was constantly forced to hide his phylactery to avoid being hunted by those who sought to destroy him. Despite these challenges, Xander remained determined to use his new powers to achieve his goals and gain the immortality that he had always craved. He spent his days studying dark magic and scheming to achieve his ends, becoming more and more isolated from the rest of the world as he delved deeper into the dark arts. Xander's thirst for power proved to be his undoing. A group of heroes discovered his phylactery and, realizing the threat that he posed, set out to destroy it. Xander fought with all of his might, but in the end, he was no match for the combined might of the heroes. His phylactery was shattered, and his immortal spirit was finally laid to rest. The Kinoly is a type of ghost or ancestral spirit that appears in the folklore of Madagascar. These ghoulish creatures are believed to be the vengeful spirits of ancestors who were not properly cared for and are now forgotten. According to legend, such ancestors turn into angry ghosts called Kinoly, which haunt only their own graves and bring pestilence and misfortune upon those who have wronged them. The Kinoly is said to have a number of eerie and otherworldly characteristics. It is described as looking like a normal human at first glance, but with some unsettling features such as red eyes and long, razor-sharp fingernails that resemble daggers. These sharp claws are believed to be one of the Kinoly's primary weapons, as it uses them to disembowel the living. There is one legend about a Malagasy person who encountered a Kinoly and managed to ask it some questions. When asked about its red eyes, the Kinoly reportedly replied, "God passed by them." When asked about its long nails, the ghost is said to have responded, "That I may tear out your liver," before immediately doing so. To prevent ancestors from becoming Kinoly, the Malagasy are said to perform a ritual called the Famadahana. This ritual involves exhuming the remains of deceased ancestors, rewrapping them in fresh burial cloths, and then dancing with the bodies before returning them to the grave. It is believed that this ritual helps to appease the spirits of the ancestors and prevent them from becoming vengeful Kinoly. The villagers of Antsirab lived in fear of the Kinoly, a ghoulish ancestor ghost that was said to haunt its own grave and bring misfortune upon those who had wronged it. No one knew for certain what a Kinoly looked like, but the stories all described a creature with red eyes and long, sharp fingernails that it used to disembowel the living. One night, a young man named Andre was walking home from a friend's house when he heard a strange noise behind him. He turned around, but saw nothing. As he continued walking, the noise grew louder and louder until it sounded like someone was right behind him. Andre started to run, but the noise only seemed to get closer. Just as he was about to reach the safety of his home, Andre tripped and fell to the ground. He turned to see what had caused him to stumble, and to his horror, he saw a Kinoly standing over him. The creature had red eyes that glowed in the darkness, and its long nails were bared like claws. Andre screamed for help, but no one answered. The Kinoly leaned down, its red eyes boring into Andre's soul. "How is it your eyes are so red?" Andre asked, hoping to distract the creature long enough to escape. The Kinoly chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down Andre's spine. "God passed by them," it replied. Andre knew he had to act fast. He grabbed a rock and swung it at the Kinoly's head with all his might. The creature let out a howl of pain and disappeared into the night. Andre ran home, too terrified to look back. According to Philippine folklore, Bal-Bal is a type of undead creature that is created when a person dies an untimely or violent death, such as through murder or suicide. The Bal-Bal is said to be a vengeful spirit that haunts the place where it died, often seeking to harm or kill those who it holds responsible for its death. It is said to be able to take on various forms, including that of a large black dog or a human-like figure with glowing eyes. Some people believe that the Bal-Bal can be warded off by leaving offerings of food or tobacco at the place where it is believed to be haunting, or by performing rituals to appease the spirit. Others believe that the only way to get rid of a Bal-Bal is to find its body and properly bury it, thus allowing the spirit to rest. In some versions of the folklore, it is believed that the Bal-Bal can possess the bodies of the living, causing them to act in strange and often violent ways. It is also believed that the Bal-Bal can drain the life force of its victims, leaving them feeling weak and sickly. There are many different stories and beliefs surrounding the Bal-Bal, and it continues to be a popular subject in Philippine folklore and popular culture. It is often depicted as a terrifying and malevolent creature, and is said to be feared by many people in the Philippines. The fetch is a type of supernatural being from Irish folklore. It is said to be the spirit double or doppelganger of a living person, and is often described as a pale, ghostly figure that is an exact replica of the person it represents. According to legend, the fetch appears when a person is about to die or experience great misfortune. Some believe that the fetch is a portent of death, appearing as a warning to the person or their loved ones. Others believe that the fetch is a guardian spirit, sent to protect the person in their time of need. There are many stories about the fetch in Irish folklore. Some say that the fetch can be seen standing at the foot of a person's bed just before they fall ill or die. Others claim that the fetch can be seen walking alongside a person as they travel, appearing and disappearing at will. In some stories, the fetch is described as a malevolent being, seeking to bring harm or death to the person it represents. In others, it is portrayed as a benevolent protector, watching over the person and warning them of danger. Despite its potentially ominous nature, the fetch is often seen as a positive omen in Irish folklore. It is believed to be a sign of the presence of guardian angels or other supernatural beings. watching over and protecting the person. Many people in Ireland believe that seeing one's fetch is a lucky charm, bringing good fortune and protection from harm. Maggie had always been a superstitious woman, and she firmly believed in the legend of the fetch. According to the old stories, the fetch was the spirit double of a living person, appearing as a ghostly figure that was an exact replica of the person it represented. Some said the fetch was a portent of death, appearing as a warning to the person or their loved ones. Others believed that the fetch was a guardian spirit, sent to protect the person in their time of need. Maggie had never seen her own fetch, but she had heard enough stories to know that it was a powerful and potentially dangerous being. So when she saw a pale figure standing at the foot of her bed one night, she knew immediately what it was. The fetch was the spitting image of Maggie, down to the last detail. Its eyes were cold and empty, and its lips were twisted into a malevolent grin. Maggie tried to scream, but no sound came out. She was frozen in fear, unable to move or speak. The fetch leaned down, its breath cold on Maggie's face. "You should have listened to me," it whispered. "You should have heeded my warning. But now it's too late." Maggie's heart raced as the fetch reached out a hand, its long nails glinting in the dim light. She closed her eyes, bracing herself for the worst. But the attack never came. When she opened her eyes, the fetch was gone. Maggie lay in bed, trembling with fear, unsure if what she had just experienced had been real or a nightmare. But deep down, she knew the truth. The fetch had come for her, and it would be back. And next time, there would be no escape. Sorry to interrupt. If Explorer X here, if you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing after the video. Let's get back to the story. The Domovoy is a type of household spirit from Russian folklore. It is believed to inhabit the homes of human families and act as a guardian and protector of the household. According to legend, the Domovoy is a small, gnome-like creature with a mischievous nature. It is said to be fond of practical jokes and pranks, and is often described as being mischievous or even malevolent. Despite its mischievous tendencies, the Domovoy is also believed to be fiercely protective of the household and its occupants, and will go to great lengths to defend them from harm. The Domovoy is said to be most active at night, when it can be heard moving about the house and causing mischief. Some people believe that the Domovoy can be seen as a shadowy figure out of the corner of the eye, while others claim that it can be heard knocking on walls or making other sounds in the house. In order to appease the Domovoy and gain its protection, it is common in Russian folklore to leave offerings of food or drink out for the spirit. Some people also believe that certain rituals or spells can be used to invoke the Domovoy's aid or invoke its protection. Irina had always been skeptical of the old stories about the Domovoy, the household spirit that was said to inhabit the homes of human families and protect them from harm. She had never seen any evidence of the mischievous little creature, and she had always assumed that it was nothing more than a myth. But one night, Irina began to have second thoughts. She was lying in bed, trying to sleep, when she heard a faint knock at the wall. She ignored it at first, but the knocking continued, growing louder and more insistent. Irina sat up in bed, straining to see in the darkness. She thought she saw a shadowy figure moving at the foot of the bed, but when she turned on the light, there was nothing there. The knocking continued, and Irina began to feel uneasy. She remembered the stories her grandfather had told her about the Domovoy, and she wondered if the mischievous spirit was trying to communicate with her. She closed her eyes and tried to go back to sleep, but the knocking only grew louder. Irina knew she couldn't ignore it any longer. She got out of bed and followed the sound, trying to track down the source of the noise. As she searched the house, Irina heard a faint voice calling her name. She followed the voice to the kitchen, where she found a small, gnome-like creature standing on the counter. The Domovoy grinned up at Irina, its eyes twinkling with mischief. "I've been trying to get your attention for hours," it said. "I need your help." Irina was surprised, but she didn't hesitate. She knew that the Domovoy was a powerful and benevolent spirit, and she was determined to do whatever she could to help it. Together, Irina and the Domovoy worked through the night, using all of their combined strength and cunning to protect the household from a group of thieves who had been trying to break in. When the sun rose, the thieves had been defeated and the house was safe once again. Futakuchi-Onna, also known as the two-mouthed woman, is a supernatural being from Japanese folklore. According to legend, the Futakuchi-Onna is a woman who has a second mouth on the back of her head, which is capable of speaking, laughing, and even eating. The Futakuchi-Onna is often depicted as a woman with long, flowing hair that conceals the second mouth on the back of her head. Some stories describe the second mouth as being small and childlike, while others portray it as being large and grotesque. The legend of the Futakuchi-Onna is said to have originated in the Edo period in Japan, and it is often associated with stories of greed and gluttony. According to one version of the legend, the Futakuchi-Onna is a woman who is cursed with a second mouth because she is unable to control her hunger and consumes vast quantities of food. Other stories portray the Futakuchi-Onna as a woman who is punished for being too greedy or for hoarding food. In these tales, the second mouth is said to appear as a punishment for the woman's greed and gluttony. Despite its fearsome reputation, the Futakuchi-Onna is also sometimes depicted as a sympathetic figure in Japanese folklore. In some stories, the woman is said to be cursed with the second mouth against her will, and she is portrayed as a victim of circumstance. Overall, the Futakuchi-Onna is a complex and multifaceted figure in Japanese folklore, and it is often seen as a symbol of greed, gluttony, and the dangers of excess. It was said that in the small village of Kogane, there lived a woman named Kaya who was known for her insatiable appetite. Kaya was never satisfied with the food she was given, and she was always seeking more. She would eat until she was sick, and then start eating again as soon as she felt better. The villagers whispered that Kaya was cursed with a second mouth on the back of her head, a mouth that was always hungry and could never be satisfied. They called her the Futakuchi-Onna, the two-mouthed woman, and they avoided her whenever possible. Kaya didn't care what the villagers thought of her. She was too busy eating to worry about their opinions. But as the years passed, her appetite only grew stronger, and she became more and more isolated from the rest of the village. One day, Kaya decided to leave the village and seek out a place where she could eat in peace. She packed a bag full of food and set off into the mountains, determined to find a place where she could satisfy her hunger. As she walked, Kaya encountered a group of travelers who were also searching for a place to eat. Seeing an opportunity, Kaya offered to share her food with them. The travelers gratefully accepted her offer, and they all sat down to eat together. But as they ate, Kaya's second mouth began to speak. It laughed and cackled, taunting the travelers and demanding more food. The travelers were terrified, and they ran off into the night, leaving Kaya alone with her second mouth. Jenganger is a type of ghost or undead being from Scandinavian folklore. It is believed to be the spirit of a person who has returned from the dead to haunt the living. According to legend, the Gjenganger is a malevolent ghost that is driven by a desire to seek revenge on those who wronged it in life. It is said to be capable of causing all kinds of mischief and mayhem, including causing illness and accidents, disrupting sleep, and even driving people to madness. The Gjenganger is often depicted as a pale, ghostly figure that is translucent or semi-transparent. It is said to be able to move through solid objects and appear and disappear at will. Some stories also describe the Gjenganger as being able to shapeshift or take on other forms, such as animals or inanimate objects. To protect themselves from the Gjenganger, people in Scandinavian folklore often used various charms and talismans, such as crosses, garlic, and iron objects. It was also believed that certain rituals or spells could be used to banish or ward off the Gjenganger. Despite its malevolent nature, the Gjenganger is also sometimes depicted as a tragic figure in Scandinavian folklore. In some stories, the Gjenganger is portrayed as a victim who was wronged in life and is now seeking revenge. It is said that the Gjenganger may be able to find peace and move on to the afterlife if it is able to right the wrongs that were inflicted upon it in life. The Gjenganger is a complex and multifaceted figure in Scandinavian folklore, and it is often seen as a symbol of the dangers of seeking revenge and the importance of seeking resolution and reconciliation. Abura-Akago is a supernatural being from Japanese folklore. It is a type of yokai, or demon, that is said to appear in the form of a baby or small child. According to legend, the Abura-Akago is a malevolent yokai that preys upon human infants. It is said to be able to make itself appear as a normal baby, and it lures its victims in by crying or pretending to be in distress. Once an infant is within its grasp, the Abura-Akago sucks the oil or fat out of the baby's body, leaving the victim emaciated and weak. The Abura-Akago is often depicted as a small, sickly child with pale skin and sunken eyes. It is said to have an insatiable hunger for oil or fat, and it will stop at nothing to satisfy its cravings. In Japanese folklore, there are various methods that people use to protect themselves from the Abura-Akago. Some people believe that placing a charm or talisman near a baby's crib will help to ward off the yokai, while others claim that performing certain rituals or spells can keep the Abura-Akago at bay. Despite its malevolent nature, the Abura-Akago is also sometimes depicted as a tragic figure in Japanese folklore. In some stories, it is said to be a victim of circumstance, cursed to exist as a yokai because of some past wrongdoing or transgression. The Abura-Akago is a fearsome and terrifying figure in Japanese folklore, and it is often seen as a symbol of the dangers that lurk in the world and the importance of protecting oneself and one's loved ones. In the small village of Toyama, there lived a woman named Kumi who was known for her kindness and generosity. She was always willing to help those in need, and she had a soft spot for babies and children. One day, Kumi was out walking when she heard the sound of a baby crying. She followed the sound until she came to a small clearing, where she saw a baby lying on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Kumi's heart went out to the little one, and she rushed to pick it up. She cradled the baby in her arms, trying to soothe its cries, but no matter what she did, the baby seemed inconsolable. As Kumi held the baby, she noticed that its skin was pale and sickly, and its eyes were sunken and dark. She also noticed that the baby seemed to be growing lighter and lighter in her arms. Suddenly, the baby stopped crying and looked up at Kumi with a wicked grin. "Thank you for your kindness," it said in a voice that was much too mature for a baby. "But now it's time for me to feast." Kumi was horrified as she realized that the baby was not a baby at all, but a malevolent yokai called the Abura-Akago. She tried to pull away, but the yokai's grip was too strong. As the Abura-Akago began to suck the oil and fat from Kumi's body, she knew that she was doomed. She closed her eyes and prayed for a miracle, hoping that somehow she would be able to escape the yokai's grasp. But no miracle came. When Kumi opened her eyes, the Abura-Akago was gone, and she was left lying on the ground, emaciated and weak. Here's a bonus for sticking around. The Jinn. The Jinn, also spelled genie, are supernatural creatures in Arabic and Islamic mythology. They are often depicted as spirits with great power who can be summoned to grant wishes or perform tasks. In some stories, the Jinn are said to have been created by Allah from a smokeless fire, while in others they are said to be the offspring of angels and humans. The Jinn are said to have free will and can choose to be good or evil. They are often associated with magic and the supernatural, and are believed to be able to take on various forms, including that of humans, animals, and objects. In some traditions, Jinn are thought to be able to possess humans and influence their thoughts and actions. The Jinn are mentioned in the Quran, the holy book of Islam, and they have been a part of Islamic mythology and folklore for centuries. They have also appeared in other works of literature and popular culture, including the stories of Aladdin and his magical lamp. The story of King Solomon and the Jinn. King Solomon was known throughout the land for his wisdom, justice, and fairness. He was also said to possess special powers, including the ability to understand the language of animals and to control Jinn. One day, a group of Jinn came to him with a dispute that they were unable to resolve among themselves. The Jinn asked Solomon to listen to their case and make a fair judgment. Solomon listened carefully to both sides of the argument, and, using his wisdom and understanding of the situation, He was able to come to a just decision that satisfied both parties. The Jinn were so impressed with Solomon's fairness and wisdom that they offered to serve him and do his bidding. Solomon accepted their offer and was able to use their powers to accomplish great works and build many impressive structures. The story of the genie in the bottle. This is a popular story about a powerful genie who is imprisoned in a bottle or lamp. The genie can only be released by someone who rubs the bottle or lamp and makes a wish. In some versions of the story, the genie is able to grant 3 wishes to the person who releases it. In other versions, the genie is able to grant an unlimited number of wishes, but with potentially dangerous consequences. The story of the genie in the bottle is most commonly associated with the story of Aladdin and his magical lamp. In this version of the story, Aladdin rubs the lamp and releases the genie, who grants him 3 wishes. Aladdin uses his wishes to become rich, marry a princess, and defeat a wicked sorcerer. However, the genie warns Aladdin that he must be careful what he wishes for, as the consequences of his wishes may not always be what he expects. Well, I'm feeling weak and hungry after these stories. Don't forget to subscribe to be alerted of new videos. Explore X out.